disintegrated makes me very angry. Very angry indeed.
Oh, hey. Just taking in a little bit of the sunrise today. It's supposed to get cloudy and rainy and nasty later on. I like to start the day with a little coffee like a lot of people and just relax and read my Bible, have a little prayer and meditation time. Because I don't want the day to turn out like it did for Marvin the Martian in that clip where he got pretty angry. You know, throughout the day, things happen. A lot of times it's beyond our control. And yeah, we will get angry. But contrary to popular belief, as we're going to see in our lesson, it is not a sin to be angry. Paul told the Ephesians in chapter 4 to not let the sun go down on your wrath. So it's okay to be angry, but how are you going to deal with it? That's what we're going to look at today in this first lesson that I call Landmines in the Path of the Believer. We're going to start looking at the landmine of anger. Hey, as we've always said, if you're not careful, you might just learn something before we're done. So let's get started. Well, I'm going to finish my coffee first and then we'll get started. We can use God's Word as the light that we need to our path, especially when we are dealing with some of the situations we'll be looking at over the next couple of weeks. Anyone among us who wants to walk into a minefield without proper training or proper detection devices, none of us would do that, would we? Anybody got a real daredevil attitude or sense about them? Because landmines are pretty dangerous. If you're out on patrol, you're a soldier in a squad or a platoon or whatever, and you're out on patrol, and somebody steps on that landmine, if I step on it, it would blow off probably at least one of my legs, maybe both, and then the shrapnel, what we call collateral damage that goes out and hits the people around me. It's going to cause a lot of damage. And people like Princess Diana, she made it her life work to obliterate landmines. This is a picture of her. She's actually walking through a minefield in Angola in January of 1997. This is just not long before she died. She's with an organization called the HALO Trust, which is Hazardous Area Life Support Organization. They got their start in the late 1980s by going into Afghanistan and trying to remove landmines and clean up debris from the war that the Soviets started when they invaded. And the Soviets, being the brutal, ruthless people they were, not only did they bury the landmines like we conventionally think of, they would drop little tiny ones from airplanes and helicopters, and they were colorful and looked like toys, and then kids would pick them up and blow their hands off and maim them and kill some of them. And this organization, HALO, has since then gone into a lot of war-torn areas to clean up landmines, because landmines are dangerous. Not only the physical landmines like we deal with here, but spiritual and euphemistic or illustrative landmines are a problem. Now, the landmine, the physical kind, we can detect. Did any of you ever have or see the little plastic green toy soldiers? I used to have them all the time, and there was always that one in there with the metal detector. And that's what he's doing, is sweeping for mines. Nowadays, instead of sending soldiers, I think they've got it all on robot-controlled mechanical vehicles that will go out and look for them, and then that way people don't get hurt. But if they detect something they think is a hazard, is a mine, you can stop and then either detonate it or disarm it. You can detect those, but how do we detect the spiritual kind? the mental kind, the emotional kind. How do I know if somebody is going to blow up, so to speak, or become very angry, or be very antagonistic? A lot of times we don't. It just goes off, and then we've got to deal with it. And so for the next couple of weeks, I want to look at some of these landmines in the path of the believer. And a couple of these actually the ideas originated with some questions that I received. One of them I received through some personal Facebook messages from a friend, and then a couple others from some conversations that I've had with some folks recently about some of these issues. So I wanted to just look at them and see how we can deal with them when we do encounter these kinds of landmines, such as a man who was at the DMV. Anybody here, actually our DMV here, I have to say I'm quite impressed with them. But they are the exception. They are not the rule, especially when you go into big city DMVs. This one is a California DMV, I believe. And when I lived in California, there were a lot of lines, lots of crowds waiting for them. And the man had to wait 4 hours one day to get his business taken care of. And on his way home, stopped to get a gift for his son at a sporting goods store, bought a baseball bat and went to pay for it, and was asked if he'd pay cash or do you want to use a card? And he said, cash. Oh, sorry about that. I've just been 4 hours at the DMV. And, long lines, I'm just, impatient. I'm sorry. He profusely apologized. And the lady said, well, should I gift wrap this for you, or are you going back to DMV? The kid in the Little League baseball game and the coach explaining to him, now you understand, you get 3 strikes, you're out. Yes, sir. You understand that if you get thrown out at first base or anywhere else, don't argue with the umpire, don't insult him, don't attack him, you just go back to the bench, right? Yes, sir. You understand that? Yes, sir, I do. Okay, would you go up there into the stand and explain it to your parents? Now, I remember about 1986 or 7 on Good Morning America, the first time I saw a clip of parents fighting in the stands at a Little League game. And at first, that's an anomaly, okay. But since then, I've read over the years of Little Leagues and school districts that require parents to sign codes of conduct agreements that lay out what's expected of them, that if they violate that code, they'll be ejected from the game and possibly banned for the remainder of the season from that particular sport, or maybe for the school year. It says a lot about where we've come to at a point, doesn't it? Because I think we've gotten to where we are kind of selfish and spoiled, where we've become more and more angry, less and less tolerant, despite all the pleas for tolerance and claims to tolerance made by some. And I was thinking as I was preparing this lesson of a couple of individuals I know who just pride themselves on being able to get whatever they want and get their way. Why? Well, because I just don't take no for an answer, and I make sure I get mine, that I have my way. They're not usually very happy people, and they are the kind of landmine personality. They'll just blow up and figure that's going to do it. But in my younger, more naive days, and I don't mean just last week, I'm talking way back before, that was a lot of times how I would deal with situations. And over time, you learn that doesn't work very well. But I want us to look at some, as we look at these landmines in the path of the believer, open to Ephesians chapter 4. Because we're going to deal with this first one about anger. Now, some people, most of us at one time or another have gotten angry. And sometimes maybe it's gotten out of control anger. I can only think of one person that off the top of my head that I know didn't get angry, and it was a man, he was a World War II veteran. And I helped do his funeral when he died here several years ago. And at the funeral, his son was talking about him. He had been in the Pacific Theater during the Second World War, and I can't remember, he either went into Tarawa or Saipan. And those were 2 very bloody battles. And his son said that growing up, he doesn't remember his dad ever getting angry about anything. Dad always stayed calm, he said. And Dad was a high school science teacher. So if he could stay calm, then he had it licked. And he said one day after he became an adult and all this he was putting all this together, he went to his dad and just was talking to him and said, Dad, I don't remember you ever getting mad when I was a kid. How did you do that? I get mad at my kids and that. And his dad said, well, son, I left all that on the battlefield. After dealing with the carnage of battle and seeing men maimed and dying and all that was going on, everything else in life paled. Everything else in life really wasn't that significant. Wasn't worth the time and trouble to get angry. And I thought, well, that made sense from someone who's actually seen real battle. But not all of us are that fortunate to be able to put anger aside and not become angry. Most of us do. But look what Paul had to say. He says, therefore, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath, nor give place to the devil. Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give to him who has need. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, notice the anger is in this list, clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. Now I want to just look first of all here at some basics that we see in this passage. That's another one of those list of things that Paul's giving us that are very practical. Things we can use every day. Some basics about anger. Now, when I first became a Christian, and I'll tell you honestly, I don't know where this idea originated, but I just remember at the time having the idea that anger is a sin. Christians can't get angry. And a lot of times as a kid growing up, expressions of anger were not particularly welcome. But it is not a sin to be angry. It is not a sin to express anger. We can be angry and do not sin. In verse 26, he says, be angry and do not sin. Or be ye angry and sin not, I think is how the old King James says it. And to not let the sun go down on our wrath. But what we also have to remember is anger is not a sin, but we shouldn't wallow in it. Kind of like this guy. This pig you see in the mud and in the muck and in the mire. We shouldn't stay that way. Now, is it always going to be easy? Are we going to be like the man I was telling you about who can leave it all on the battlefield and not get angry? Probably not. We're probably at times going to have hurt feelings that linger. There may be some people who can, have it out, and okay, I'm mad, and we'll have it out, and boom, they walk away, hey, I'm done with it. There are a few of those. But a lot of times we have to nurse hurt feelings. There will be times when anger is called for. When it is time and it is appropriate to be angry. Now, anger will cause us to do one of two things. You're either going to lash out and hurt people. This is the one that says a lot of rude things when they're mad and then just says, well, that's just the way I am. I speak my mind. No, that may be true, but that doesn't give you any clearance or right or blessing or whatever you want to call it to hurt someone. The other thing anger can do is motivate us to make things that are wrong right and to correct injustices. This picture over here is actually from the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice for Jack. That's Jack Phillips of Masterpiece Bakery in Colorado, who went all the way to the Supreme Court. He would not use his artistic ability to put a message on a cake that violated his religious beliefs. It was a same-sex wedding cake that two men came in and wanted. And he'd make the cake for them. He'll sell them anything in the store, but he was not going to use his artistic ability to put a message on there that violated his beliefs. Now, that kind of thing made me angry. Abortion's another thing that makes me angry. There are things that will make me angry. And it's okay to be angry. It's okay to express them as long as we're not out hurting others. As long as we're not inflicting assorted mayhem and hurt on others. There's also anger that is unjustified or selfish anger. This is the kind of anger where we brood over things. Or maybe I'm sitting over there in the corner and I'm just pouting. I'm just chewing on it. And maybe even the idea of revenge is starting to seep in. I've got to even the score. Problem is, I even the score with you for something you did to me, then what? Now you decide to up the ante. And we just have, you've come up here, I've got to even it. Okay, now here. Doesn't ever solve anything. That's the kind of thing that holds in contempt. This is the kind of anger that might in a public setting, say or do something to embarrass you because you did something to offend me, maybe last week, maybe years ago. I'm still waiting for you to explain yourself from something that happened years ago, or to apologize or whatever. So I'm just going to not let you forget about it. And I'm going to bring it up at the time that it's going to prove to be the most embarrassing and hurtful for you. And then there's also an anger that seeks to destroy. This is the kind of anger where I'm so mad at you, I'm going to jump on my Facebook page and just make it public that you did this or said that, or your business. I see this a lot with businesses. You know, I'll never again go to XYZ restaurant or XYZ hardware because of, and then they go into the situation about what happened, and a lot of times on Facebook and social media, you'll just see hints, you know, about, well, some people really need to grow up and do this or do that. And, you know, they're meaning it for a person, but for whatever reason, they won't name them. That's the kind of anger that's destructive. That's the kind of anger that seeks to destroy. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of that kind of anger and attitude, it's no fun. It's no fun. I've been on that end a couple of times. But justified anger, there is a proper anger, for instance, in dealing with sin. Like the picture I showed you with Masterpiece Bakery, that's justified anger, to be angry about that situation. To be angry about the way our society is declining, things like abortion and that. But it is not justified to go and, let's say, oh, I don't have anything else going on today, I'm going to go blow up an abortion clinic. That's not right. That's just two wrongs making a right. Righteous or justified anger needs to be disciplined and controlled. Okay, I'll write my congressman about it, supporting legislation or maybe making adoption easier. And if I'm angry with you about something, you know, I'm not going to go out and make a spectacle of it or embarrass you, but I'll come and we'll talk it out and we'll hash it out and see what we can do. Justified anger is anger that is purposeful. I know that I've got a legitimate reason to be angry or a legitimate reason to be upset. And so I'm going to try and correct the situation, but I'm going to do it the most peaceful means I know how. The quickest, most peaceful, direct means that I know how. And if I decide, you know, it's really not that big of a deal, then I need to just drop it and just move on. Now, the number one illustration in the Bible, probably at least in the New Testament, of anger being expressed, of course, is Jesus in the temple. What we call a righteous anger, where he came in and ran into a situation where there were people making a profit off of God's word, making a profit off of people who probably couldn't afford it, who were probably the least able to deal with it, but they didn't care. In a lot of ways, that situation reminds me of some of these mega church preachers that have been in the news lately, because I need a $65 million Learjet so that I can get from my headquarters in Atlanta or wherever, Dallas or wherever they are, to my satellite church up in New York or on the West Coast or wherever, even though you can do it a lot cheaper commercially. But they think they're that important, they've got to have that private jet. I see a little bit of a parallel there in that there's obviously no concern or compassion for those that are following them. Jesus, you notice, did blow his stack. He did get angry at their abuse of what was then God's house. God doesn't reside in temples or buildings anymore, but he did then. But you notice Jesus didn't get angry or lash back at when he was abused. But he was concerned about God. When we are concerned about others, that can be a righteous anger, not self-centered on me and what's going to make me happy. But because both those who were buying and selling in the temple were running against God's commandments, Jesus kicked everybody out. And what they were doing was, typically, if you came in to offer your sacrifice, maybe you were poor, like Jesus' parents, they offered a dove, or you might offer a sheep, whatever it is, inspect it, let's see, it's got to be perfect, no blemish, but there's this little tiny, you see that little blemish right there? Yeah, we can't have it. But we've got some nice ones over here we could sell you. Oh, and we can't use the cash that's in your pocket, you're going to have to go over there and get temple money. Exchange rate, see, they had a way of doing it, of making profit off it. That's what made Jesus so upset. That it was an economic move, basically, where they were lining their pockets. there right outside in what we called the court of the Gentiles, there was a lack of a worship atmosphere. This was not really a reverent atmosphere. We're here to worship God. Okay, maybe you're here to worship God. I'm here to make money. I'm here to make profit off of all this. That was more the attitude that was that the priests and that the religious leaders had at that time. And so Jesus took care of the situation. But we also have to remember there can be dangers from anger. What kind of dangers? Well, particularly, I think the number one we have to be concerned with is when we don't let it go. Had a couple of mutual friends years ago. One of them was getting ready to move. He was going to meet the other one at church. They were going to go to lunch. Well, he ended up having to work. And when Andy, my friend, went down there, he for 2 years kept saying Eric owed him an explanation why he didn't show up for church that day and why he went to work. I said, let it go. He had to go to work. He got called in. But he kept bringing it up. That's not letting it go, really, is it? Amos chapter 1, verse 11. You can see the effects that this kind of anger can have on a nation, on a group of people, not just an individual. When he said, thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom and for 4, I will not turn away its punishment, because he pursued his brother with the sword and cast off all pity. His anger tore perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. Pronouncing judgment on Edoms. Remember, they are related to Israel. And as often is the case, our relatives sometimes can make the bitterest enemies, or our people who used to be our closest friends can sometimes be the bitterest of enemies with us. And notice how he says he pursued his brother. Whoops, there we go. Pursued his brother with a sword. Think of what anger can do to us. Now, maybe we don't physically, literally pursue someone with a sword, but how about those figurative times when we take destructive actions against someone? When we, behind their back, are sniping at them and saying all kinds of hurtful things at them. Or how about the lack of pity that Edom displayed? Or the lack of compassion, some translations will say. So, we need to reflect the compassion of God. Now, it doesn't mean, here again, I'm saying compassion and pity is defined by Scripture, not defined how modern American culture defines it. I can't have a whole lot of pity on sin. I've got to be against that, and I've got to preach against it. And it may sound angry sometimes or hurtful, but I've got to tell you what the Bible says. I've got that obligation. And then Edom's anger also went on continuously. It was always there. And have you ever had to be around someone, maybe at work or at home or wherever, who was always just angry and mad at the world? Yeah, it makes for a great day, doesn't it? Makes for a lot of fun, doesn't it, when you got someone like that you have to deal with. But that's the way they were. They had no peace and about them. And those are tough ones to deal with. And then their anger and their fury was unchecked. The anger, in other words, was controlling them. Here's the person that they can't, when the only thing they know how to do is to rage. Years ago we called it a rageaholic. That's the only thing they know how to do. And anger controls them. The situation controls them, which leads to disaster. See, anger, when it's sinful, does a lot of damage. It's difficult to undo. One of the best ways I know to illustrate something like this: how long does it take to build a standard, say 3 or 4 bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 or 2,000 square foot house? How long does it take to do that? About 3 or 4 months, maybe? Assuming 5 days a week, 8 or 9 hours a day, about 3 or 4 months, I think, would be, maybe up to 6 months. How long does it take to destroy that house? A tornado can do it in a matter of seconds. Wind and storms coming through, water damage can do it maybe in a matter of minutes or hours. You set something on the stove to cook and then walk away and ignore it and forget about it, and the next thing you know, you've got a fire going in the kitchen and you've got to move out for a month or so because of the damage that was done. That happens in mere minutes because of a personal relationship can be destroyed or damaged in mere seconds by one blow up. And it's taken you months, years to get it to the close, intimate setting that you've gotten. And notice Paul said, do not give the devil an opportunity. And this is why in our personal relationships we don't want to be the blow up. We don't want to be the fire that comes through and wrecks, because it can happen in a matter of seconds, in a matter of minutes. You can have someone fearful of you, not trusting you, because you've just blown up at them. And anger opens the door for Satan to get entrance into your life. And he's going to do it. I don't think it says in Scripture anywhere that Satan is all-knowing. But he is a keen observer, very keen observer of human conduct. And remember when in Matthew 24, when Jesus is talking about the judgment day, depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for who? The devil and his angels. He's got his minions out there looking. If they can find the weak spot, what's he going to do? That's where he's going to hit you. That's the way an army attacks. If they can find the weak spot, that'll be less work for me, more work for you to have to defend. That's where he's going to hit you. So don't give him an opportunity. Don't let, as he said, let the sun go down on your wrath. Deal with these situations, these problems, because they can destroy relationships if we're not careful. In Ephesians 4, Paul tells us to deal with anger quickly, in a way that builds relationship. That's why he says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Deal with it. Of course, if you're in a place like Alaska, you got a lot of time right now. The sun's not going down for a while in some of those places. But it doesn't mean if you get angry or you got to deal with someone today on Sunday, I've got to do it, bedtime's in an hour, I got to do something. What he's saying is just do it in a timely manner. Maybe it's a situation you need to go home and sleep on it for a night or two. Maybe it's something where you need to go out and take a walk. Go down to the gym, pump some iron, do something to get the tension out of your system. And think about it before you go and say some things that you might regret, or do some things that you might regret. I've thought through the times that I have gone and done that, where I've thought, okay, I'm mad at this person or this situation. I go home, I sleep on it, I get up. Wasn't really that big of a deal after all. I blew it out of proportion, let it go. Or I think about it, I need to go talk to him. Those situations, there really aren't too many of those that I regret. But there have been times that I've just been impatient and I've just gone ahead and shot my mouth off. A lot of those times I eventually came to regret. So deal with it quickly in a timely manner, and then when used correctly, anger can motivate us to right a wrong. It can cause us to redress grievances like we were talking about earlier, if it is used correctly. When used improperly, though, it can burn us. That house that took 6 months to build, destroyed in minutes by fire. It can destroy relationships in seconds, in minutes, if we're not careful. If you're angry with someone, then you do need to do something to resolve it, to make it right. And that's where Jesus said, leave your gift at the altar and go and make it right with them. Otherwise, there can be destruction. Anger is temporary madness. Hopefully it's temporary. Because if you don't destroy something that's trying to destroy you, you need to change your response. How do you deal with it? Well, you might need to actually stop and think about how you're going to change. Control your anger, because it is just one letter away from danger. I had working with a teacher down here at the school last school year. And that's the first time I think I ever remember someone saying, when you get angry at someone, you're giving them control over you. And she was doing that talking to a student who one of these that just everything got to him. And so you're giving too much control of yourself to other people. So take that back. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to let this get to me. Because if we're going to overcome our anger, then we've got to be forgiving of others. Remember, forgive each other as God in Christ has forgiven you. Now, sometimes there might still be some consequences. I've known of some people who, they're forgiven, but they've been out of a job because they embezzled funds or stole merchandise or something from an employer. Forgiveness, James Merritt, he's a past president of the Southern Baptist Convention, he said forgiveness means let it go, or to send it away. This is where you've got a bird in your hand, you let it go. Well, there, send it away, throw it away, cast it away, get rid of it. So when it comes to this, when it comes to getting rid of anger, when it comes to dealing with it, how did Jesus forgive? Remember, he's supposed to be our ultimate example. He forgave those of us who were undeserved and also unlimited. Lord, how many times does my brother sin against me and I forgive him? I don't know, 7 times sound good to you? No, not 7 times. 7 times 70. It's unlimited. Forgiveness is also costly, or Jesus' forgiveness was costly. Had to go to the cross. God had to have some kind of a sacrifice to pay the price for sin. And it was also complete what he did, and then Jesus forgives repeatedly and eternally. You know, Jesus doesn't come and keep a running tally, 439, 440 up. We're done forgiving you today. We're done forgiving you. I think that should be 490. Yeah, I did the math wrong. Yeah, see, I'm not allowed to math without supervision. But he doesn't get to that 491st time of forgiving you and then say, that's it, you're cut off. He does it continually. And every person in this room, in this world, deserved eternal punishment for our sins, but God forgave us. God calls us to do the same thing when we're angry. Nothing wrong, again, with being angry. Remember, God also got angry. Look at the Old Testament. And you can see where his anger was aroused. The Lord can give us the power to forgive and the power to change our hearts. Problem is, so many times we don't seem to want to let him do that. You know, forgiveness is great as long as I'm on the receiving end of it. But if I have to give forgiveness to someone, I'm going to forgive him. Are you serious? Didn't you hear what he said? Or what he did? Yeah, right. That's many times the way we like to look at it, isn't it? Some thoughts about anger right out of the scriptures. It's cruel and fury overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? And I like the second one. A fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. The fool's the one that's going to blow up, especially over something that is really not serious. You know, the guy at the restaurant whose steak wasn't quite like what he wanted, and so he blows up at the waitress. Now, that's the fool. But the wise man's going to keep himself under control. He's going to deal with it, but he's going to do it in a contention. And a hot-tempered one commits many sins. You see that throughout the Bible. The people who are out of control are the ones typically throughout Proverbs that are said to either be sinning or to be foolish. So God doesn't want us to just manage anger. He wants us to master it and overcome it. And next week we're going to tie this into and look at forgiveness. And I know, it's just speaking personally, it's not always easy to forgive. It's not always easy to let anger go. But this is where we have to really try and put the effort in. So this morning, think about where you are in your life. Think about if there's any of this that needs application. I can't answer that. Only you can. We'll stand in a minute and sing our invitation song, as is our normal custom. Be glad to pray for you if you need it. And if we can help you in any way with that, if you want to talk privately, we can do that. But if you would like to respond, then we invite you to do so as together we stand and as we sing.
Sing How Sweet, How Heavenly, page 195. How sweet, how heavenly.